Hi everyone, I'm Miss Freeman and today we're going to learn how to read notation on the treble clef stave. Now, a lot of people when faced with a piece of music just think, what is that? So don't worry if you're thinking that way, you're not alone. It's essentially reading in a different language. But once we start to break it down, it becomes a bit easier for us and we can work out what notes we're meant to play on our instruments. So the first thing that we need to bear in mind when we're looking at notation is that we've got a stave. So that's 5 lines. So 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. So these 5 lines that you can see running along the page here, they're called our stave. And then on our stave, we have a clef. So the first thing that you'll find on your stave will always be a clef. We have got some different ones, but this one that you can see here is our treble clef. And so when you see the treble clef at the start of your music, the notes will always be in the place that we're going to learn about today. So have a look at this chart. Now on this chart, you can see that it's split into 2 halves. It doesn't run all in one go from bottom to top. It's been split. So some of these notes, they're in what I like to call the space between the lines. Those are the ones on the left there. And then the notes on the right, they're the ones that are sitting on the line or have the line running through the note. Now, it doesn't matter what the notes look like, whether you've got a semi-breve, that's a 4-count note, or the minim, our 2-count note, or our quavers. Sorry, these ones are our quavers, our half-count notes, or our crotchets. It doesn't matter if the tails on those notes go up or go down. We're simply looking at where the note head, that's the dot or the circle, sit in the lines, and that tells us what note to play. So you can see, looking again at our chart, I've started with the notes in the spaces. So those notes in the spaces running from the bottom space to the top space on our stave are F, A, C and E. And that spells out the word face. So that's nice and easy for us to remember. So if I was to draw a note in the bottom space on our stave, that one in our treble clef stave is an F, and it will always be an F. So as soon as you know that, you've got a good idea of where to start. So if I then draw a note in the second space, so I count up from the bottom note. So I've got 1, 2. So this note here in the second space, F, let's spell out the word face, so F, and then A, that second space is always going to be an A on our treble clef stave. Have you guessed what the note in the next space is going to be yet? Spell out face, F, A, you guessed it, it's C. So in the third space, if I'm counting them, 1, 2, 3, the third space up is our C. Have you guessed what that note in the top space is going to be yet? F, A, C. The top space is going to be an E. There it is, there's our E. So it doesn't matter, again, what the rhythm of the notes is telling us. In these spaces, the bottom one, always F, second one, always an A, third one, always a C, and the top space is always E. Remember, we're working in the treble clef stave because we do have some different clefs that tell us the notes are in a different place in our music. But if you're learning a melody or a melody instrument like a recorder, a violin or a flute, then we've usually got the treble clef at the start of our music. So I can change these notes now to tell us something slightly different. So I've changed them. They're now our 1-count notes, but they're still the same pitch note. So this one is still our F, still our A, still our C, and still our E. And you'll notice that the ones that are lower down on the stave, I drew the tails going upwards into the stave, and the ones that are higher up I do the tails going down. Now, the notes that are on our lines is quite simply the same. If we count from the bottom of our stave, that bottom, I've drawn it this time and it sits on top of the line, or the line runs through that note head. That one is an E. And then I draw one on the second line up. So 1, 2, I'm counting the lines. I see the line runs through the middle of that note. That's our G. If I draw one on the third line, counting again from the bottom, count the lines. 1, 2, 3. That note on our third line is our B. If I draw one on the fourth line up, count those lines again. 1, 2, 3, 4. That one is D. And on the top line, or if I count from bottom, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, the fifth line up from the bottom, that one is our F. And they spell out a rhyme. You can change it to different words if you want, but we try and use a rhyme to help us remember where those notes are on our stave. So we can use every good boy deserves football, or every good boy deserves fruit, or you could change it to something completely different if you like, as long as it helps you remember those note names. So we've got E, G, B, D, and F. So again, we can change those notes to tell us a different rhythm. Just going to colour those in quickly so that it changes it. So I'm going to use a 1-beat note. I'm going to use 2 half-beat notes and 2 more 1-beat notes. So I've now changed it so it tells us a rhythm. So I've still got E, G, B, D, and F, only the G and B are slightly faster notes than the others. So those are all of the notes on our treble clef stave. Now, sometimes the notes go above and below the stave, but it still works in the same system of space, then line, then space, then line, and we count every space and every line to tell us where those notes are. So if I just put a treble clef on this stave at the bottom of my paper here, and then what I'm going to do is I'm going to start on the bottom. So that bottom line we know is an E. Have you guessed what the note is in that bottom space there? So remember, our bottom space was an F. Let's write those underneath. So I've got F, A, C, and E in my spaces, and E, G, B, D, and F on the lines. There we go. So on my bottom line, I've got an E, and in my bottom space, I've got an F. On the second line, I wonder if you can remember what that note is on the second line up. So 1, 2, I'm counting the lines. If not, you can check up here. Look, 1, 2, that second line is our G. So we've got G. We've then got another note in a space here. So that note in my second space up, look, is the A. And then I go line, space, line, space, line. And I've put in all of the notes from E to our top line, which is F. And that's every line and every space on our stave. So we know that this third line up is our B. So we've then got 1, 2, 3, the third space. So a note in our third space, double check, you've guessed it, it's a C. Next one is on our fourth line up. Look, 1, 2, 3, fourth line. And we know that that note is on our fourth line, a D. So that's going to be a D. And in my top space, the last letter of face, oh yes, it's E. And on my top line, you can see it will be an F. So I've now got every single note and every line and every space of our treble clef stave written in there. So we've got E, F, G, A, B, C, D, E, and F. Now, if you play a piano or keyboard, you'll be able to find those notes, and that will be all of the white notes on your keyboard. You'll notice that in order, those notes follow the same pattern. Okay, so that's every single note. Now, sometimes I mentioned that the notes can go above or even below the stave, and that's a bit confusing. So I'm just going to draw a couple in here. And I'm just going to draw the line and put my note on it. So what I've done here at the bottom, you can see the space below that bottom line. I've drawn a note, and then I've drawn an extra line underneath and put a note on it. And I've done the same at the top. So I've done one in the space above the top line, and up here I've drawn a line and put another note. And we can quite simply count up or down to those notes. So usually on the keyboard, we use the note C to C. C, D, E, F, G, A, B, C. So it sort of follows the alphabet, but then it stops and repeats. So again, we've got C, D, E, F, G, A, B, C. So if I'm counting up C, let's point at the right line. So I've got C, D, E, F. The next note on that next space is going to be G, C, D, E, F, G, A. So on that line that I've added above the stave, we've got A. So those two notes above the stave, we've just counted up from C. Let's do it again. C, D, E, F, G, A. We can count down as well. C, B, A, G, F, E. The next note, look, after E was D. And then that one over here that I've drawn an extra line on for is a C. So let's write those on. So we've got D and we've got C below the stave. Now this note here is quite a special one because that is the note on our treble clef stave that is referred to as middle C. You might hear that referred to quite a lot in your music. It's generally where a lot of things start, or you might need your thumb on middle C if you're learning to play the keyboard or piano. So the thing to remember with our notation is just that every line and every space always has its own note.